Well, I am from Nashville. I spent a lot of years there and had a lot of good experiences. And one night I went down to watch the taping of a TV series called New Country. And it used to air on the Nashville network. And it was a program that was an hour in duration, and they always featured two artists. And so I went on down and watched them tape the show, and the first artist was Nancy Griffith. And I'm sure that a lot of you are familiar with Nancy. She's a great, great artist and writer, songwriter. And the second artist was someone I hadn't heard of before nor seen. And he was a redheaded Frenchman from Maine, the state of Maine. And he played wonderful guitar, and he sang great songs, and the songs themselves were very well crafted and written by him. And I thought, you know, I'd really like to spend a little time with this guy. His name was Dave Mallett. Maybe some of you know of Dave. And that was my first encounter with him, and I thought, man, I'd really like to spend a little time with Dave and kind of pick his brain and see what I could learn from him. And I did get a chance to talk to him that night, but about 3 weeks later, he moved in next door. And he brought his lovely wife, Janie, and their two sons, Luke and Will, and they were also redheaded. So there were 3 redheaded men and one beautiful woman living next door. And my wife at the time and I became very good friends with Dave and Janie. But my son Matthew was an only child, and he was about 4 years old at the time, and so he'd spent the first 4 years of his life trying to sort of entertain himself for the most part. But here were these 2 boys about his age, moved in right next door, and so they became just inseparable, wonderful friends for the next 5 years, and they were always together. They became actually surrogate brothers with each other, and so it was really good. And Dave, he signed a publishing deal with a company called Forerunner Publishing Company, and that was the house of Garth Brooks. Garth Brooks was signed there, and they produced all the Garth Brooks records in the studio there. Ellen Reynolds was the producer, and so it was a nice little cozy situation for Dave to be in. And so many of the writers at Forerunner Music just sort of fed Garth some songs, and Garth cut those songs, and those people became extremely rich off those, because Garth was selling 7 to 8 million units per release. And so Dave, he got a Kathy Mattea cut, and he got an Emmylou Harris cut, and a Hal Ketchum cut, but that Garth Brooks cut eluded him. And he got very angry about that. And so he got angry enough, in fact, that one day we saw a U-Haul truck pull up in front of the house, and they started moving Dave's furniture into the truck. And we ran over and said, well, what's going on here? And he said, well, we're moving back to Maine. And so we were just heartbroken. My wife and I were very, very sad about that, but even sadder was my son Matthew. Here were his great brothers, Luke and Will, moving away. And so they completed the whole process of loading their truck up, and they got inside, and they had their car towed behind it, and they actually just said goodbye and pulled on down the road. And there was my son Matthew in awe, just devastated. And it was rough for him for quite a while, quite a few months. And so anyway, Matthew and Luke and Will had minimal contact over the years. Matthew saw them in Maine, maybe when he was about 12 years old. And then he went up again not too long ago, maybe about 3 years ago, to visit with them, and the Malletts had come through town a couple of times. So, you know, every few years they got to see each other, but didn't spend a lot of time together. But Matthew went on up to Maine just about 3 years ago, and Matthew found my guitar. We tried to hide the instruments from him, but he found them. And so he started playing guitar, and he got quite good at it. And so by the time he went up to see the Mallets 3 years ago, the Mallets had formed their own band called the Mallett Brothers Band. And the Mallett Brothers Band was voted the best band in New England. So they were not any lightweights. And so Matthew got to sit in with them in their practice and jam a little bit with them, and he really enjoyed that. And when it was all over, he came on home. And then about 1.5 years ago, the Mallett brothers called him up on the telephone, and they said, well, Matthew, guess what? Our lead guitar player has quit the band, and we'd like you to come up here and play lead guitar for us. So there was Matthew back in the fold with his surrogate brothers, the Mallett brothers, and playing lead guitar for them. And so the whole thing, the whole process just warmed our hearts considerably. And so anyway, I wrote a song about that day that they pulled off in that U-Haul truck, and it's called Maine Chill. Tail lights on that U-Haul, black smoke from the pipes, hoping that some miracle might bring me back that night. After years of being family, siblings of the soul, left us looking long and hard at the endless road, going home. The deep does the snowfall, how silver the clouds. Is there work up in Portland? Can the children pray out loud? Does the highway run swiftly through this solemn divide? And does your scarlet hair still light the room in the chill of the night? Voices on the long wire, memories in decay, fading like a red rose on a blue November day. We talk about reunion, we talk of living there, we talk like three blind jugglers with three lives in the air. Deep does the snowfall, how silver the clouds. Is there work up in Portland? Can the children pray out loud? Does the highway run swiftly through this solemn divide? And does your scarlet hair still light the room in the chill of the night? Time is money in a bold-faced lie. Money talks, time steals it away. Well, you can't buy true friends in the hard times, and you can't buy back the good old days. So how deep does the snow fall? How silver the clouds? Is the work up there in Portland? Can the children pray out loud? Does the highway run swiftly through this solid divide? And does your scarlet hair still light the room in the chill of the night? In the chill of the night. In the chill of the night. In the chill of the night.